Summit. And I would really like sort of Safder to sum up. But are there any questions in the audience? We've got two experts here, one on disaster risk finance from the World Bank. We have Safder here, who obviously is an expert in also takaful and many other areas. So I want to throw open the floor, so to speak, for questions. Right, and what we're going to do is just very briefly, if we have microphones there in the audience somewhere, right? Maybe just very briefly. So I know you're all experts in your own right as well, obviously, but we try to keep it to questions, and we're just going to collate 2 or 3 to maybe then give the panelists an opportunity to kind of answer them in a comprehensive manner. Yes, on the right there, first hand.
Thank you very, very much for both of your presentations. My question is to Matthew and both yourself, Safder, as well. What lessons can we learn from the education of the donor community, especially with the World Bank, to move them towards disaster risk funding? And what lessons could the takaful providers in the room learn to be able to then convince the wider communities within Muslim societies that insurance is pertinent to protection when in disaster context or in context of conflict as well?
Okay, let's just move on. If you can just move the microphone along. Anybody on the right-hand side? Unless we go into the middle. Any questions in the middle? Yes? Someone behind you with a mic.
Thank you very much. Matthew, how about the protection of the cat bond? Does the World Bank use any cat bond, and how much is it? Thank you.
There was another question just in front of you. If you just pass the microphone, please.
This is a question to Matthew. Matthew, you discussed many and varied aspects regarding catastrophe management and poverty alleviation. The question I have from a practitioner's perspective is that why is there not enough traction between the World Bank and the Aga Khan Foundation, who are on the philanthropic side as well, and the takaful and insurance industry? There seems to be both talking the same language, but the synergies are not there.
Good. And on the left, yes?
Thank you very much for your presentations. It was really good to hear from Matthew the various initiatives, including takaful, exploring takaful opportunities that the World Bank employs for those affected by various disasters. I wonder, what role does the World Bank play, if at all, in reducing the effects of climate change, or those are vulnerable for different reasons? And if it does play a role, does it have any strategies in place, perhaps, for example, withholding funds for limited periods, or different initiatives to which either encourage or impress upon these governments to reduce the scale of these disasters?
Good. Excellent. Any other? Yes, another question here to the front, please. Matthew, you're a very popular man, so I hope you're taking notes, right?
Thank you very much, Brother Safder. Actually, I have a couple of questions. I'm asking what is the reason for financial exclusion, and how would you resolve this through microfinancing or takaful? And secondly, I'm asking, do you think that climate change only responsible for the financial exclusion? And the third one, I'm asking that this political turmoil in Middle East is not responsible for financial exclusion. And merely, you told me that just merely pumping fund in charity would not means improvise the financial exclusion or inclusion, or make the condition better for the people. That so, what are the strategies World Bank has made to remove it? And you have quoted the one incident from the India, Prime Minister Bima Yojana. So I'm sorry, I would like to tell you, this is I say this is a fraud at all that. And I have seen that, actually I'm working on agriculture finance from past 3 years, and I have seen this current government haven't disclose the data farmers societies from past 5 years. And other NGOs, they have shown that more than 20,000 farmers committed suicide. Thank you. Please enlighten.
Okay, I think we've got a good number of questions here covering donor education, the catastrophe bonds, the relationship between World Bank and Takaful, and obviously then the big question on what's the World Bank doing on climate change. So I just want to give Matthew the opportunity before we move to Safder. He's got also a nice series of questions. Just give Matthew the opportunity to respond, but also then use that as a way of sort of closing and summing up what we've learned today.
Excellent range of questions, and thank you for the engagement. Some I can answer in detail, some I can't, but very happy to take them offline if people would like to discuss, or I can find out more information. In relation to the first, the lessons learned, what can the World Bank help the Takaful insurance community to learn about how to deal with these types of perils? It's so wide, but I think the major things will be learning where, for instance, products have not been particularly well designed to fit the needs of the individual communities. It's not always perfect. Parametrics are a good example. Sometimes parametrics don't work. And it's important that those lessons around how to design the correct mechanisms are fully understood. The bank has a lot of experience now working to try and support communities and sovereigns. And one of the things there, I think, is that obviously the knowledge transfer of the bank in its experiences around how to find practical impact. This is the thing I think that's always the struggle, and we discussed this at the coffee break as well, is finding ways to show that the funds that have been made available are actually making a difference to the people that need them. It's all well and good providing financial support. You can have an insurance policy, for instance, or parametric, and it triggers and the money's there. Getting it to the people who need it and actually making a difference is key. And if there's one thing I'd say from my experience of the bank is that's the critical thing. So finding ways to show the people who ultimately are paying for the need for it, the people the recipients of it, the people in government who are supporting it, they can be shown that there is a tangible benefit from that. It isn't just money moving from one thing to another. It's actually making a difference. Whether that's people's incomes are growing. We talked about this briefly at the coffee thing about confidence. It isn't all tangible. It could be confidence, but you've got to be able to show the benefit. So that'd be my major takeaway from that. In terms of how much is protected by cat bonds, the cat bonds are used quite significantly for certain projects. I don't have a number, but they are significant. Again, part of the toolbox. A cat bond provides, again, an ability. One example, good example, is the Mexico Fonden project, which includes a catastrophe bond mechanism, which is what we in the industry call a cat in the box cat bond. Basically, it's a trigger, but it's a trigger based on a certain set of parameters, and there's one for named storms, as they call it, and one for earthquakes in Mexico, which provides immediate disbursement. So bonds are actually quite a useful option. Again, they're one mechanism for alternative risk transfer. They provide, it's a counterparty process, obviously, and it provides a way to allow funds to be made available. Again, they are suitable for certain aspects, but they are used. I can't answer, I'm afraid, I'm really sorry, the specific question on the Aga Khan Foundation, but I'm very happy to find out the information if necessary. Interaction with Takaful, I apologise that I don't know the details because I'm new to the bank in that area, but I do know, having spoken to people, that there is interest. Unfortunately, my practice manager, Olivia Mahal, can't be here today because he's actually abroad, as most of my colleagues tend to be, and myself, at most times of the year. But he was in Kuala Lumpur recently talking on Takaful as well. It's an area of interest to the bank. There have been numerous activities over the years on this, but it is something we're exploring more and we're very, very keen on. So I would say let's just have that dialogue more. Let's start that conversation. In exploring, how the bank can play a better effort with reducing the impacts of climate change, the bank is extremely instrumental at the moment in climate reduction, greenhouse gas emissions. If you look at where the bank's funding, it is in, for instance, renewable power. So infrastructure, again, my area. Photovoltaics is the main example. Photovoltaics and batteries, being able to provide power generation not from fossil fuel, particularly coal, but bringing it to the local level. So this is now investing significant amounts in the electrification of countries. For instance, Myanmar is a good example, but it's across Vietnam, the whole of Southeast Asia, where electrification projects are absolutely critical, bringing them to the local areas. But the flip side, as I was saying, is there's a risk because they become vulnerable potentially. So they have to be put in place with the right structures. But there are green strategies across the board. The bank's primary climate goal is to reduce the impact of greenhouse gas emissions on climate risk. It's mutually beneficial, obviously, for our long-term stated goals. It will also be a key part of the UN climate change meeting in New York later this year, where the bank is instrumental as well. In terms of the financial risk and the microfinancing tackle, I think that I can move that one to the side here. But just to say that I think the bank's strategic view on this, in terms of improving the way that financial risk and microfinancing technical development is improved, I think we do need to do more on that. I think we have to. It's finding the right ways to find the ways to work with the microfinancing. Potentially unlocking. This is the thing to me. It's unlocking that potential more effectively, which is clearly something we can do. But it's a positive in my sense. That's why I'm here. That's why we want to talk about it. So I think in the long run, lessons learned is the key thing. We can certainly help with that, and certainly the partnership part of that.
Sure, I'll just supplement to what was said on the question of lessons for donor community to be able to convince them that the takaful insurance is the right way. Absolutely, it's a question of education, really. Donors need to be educated. There's a compassion element. The moment there is a crisis, everybody wants to contribute. I think probably this is a question for you, Mohammed, than myself, because this is where your expertise is. How do you do that? In terms of the reasons as to why there is financial exclusion and low penetration, there are many reasons, but one of the reasons that we identified working through the Microinsurance Center was the lack of affordability of products, access of those products to the vulnerable, simplicity of the products. These are fundamental features. So when you put together a product design for takaful or microinsurance, you need to keep it very simple, understandable, keep it extremely cheap, affordable, and the distribution has to be simplistic, the payment mechanism has to be simple, and this is where we have seen the success rate increases if you keep those fundamental components of simplicity and understandability and the distribution components. In terms of the political turmoil resulting in financial exclusion, this is a political question. There is no doubt in any war-torn country, it's bound to happen. It's unfortunate. It's very sad, but that's where we are. It's certainly more of a political challenge. In terms of the scheme in India, the Prime Minister scheme, where from your experience there's fraudulent activities, so on and so forth. Look, the idea of is what we are discussing. The idea of supporting the farmers, supporting them in the 2 seasons over the year. These are the vulnerable. The idea is great. It's been 2.5 years or 3 years probably since the scheme has incepted. I can only talk from the numbers that I see that it has appeared to be profitable in some areas, challenging. I don't know the realities on the ground. India being India with 1 billion people, lots of things happen. So I really cannot talk about the experiences that you have seen. But I think it's the idea, it's the concepts that we are discussing today, which can take us forward.
Good. So unless there are any burning questions, but I think as Matthew said and Safder, there's a lunch break, and I think maybe there's a sort of a dialogue that is happening there. Well, can I then close the session? We would like to thank, of course, the organizers, especially Iqbal, I think for creating that dialogue. That dialogue is important, and having Matthew from the World Bank here today, I think is a good starting point. It's not the only discussion that's happening, but it's a really important discussion. So dialogue. I also learned, and I think this is maybe a branding issue, just borrowing from the World Bank's acronyms, I think we should make one that says MTD, so maximizing takaful for development. There are opportunities. Safder, I think, was very eloquent in spelling them out for you. Safder will also be available for consultancy, maybe, or otherwise over the lunch break, pro bono, just to kind of help you, thinking through the business ideas that come out from here. And a personal plea from my organization, I think you're making our work much easier if we can sort of try to nip the disaster in the bud before it starts really getting out of proportion. We do need financial protection strategies in the way that Matthew and Safder have outlined, both at the sovereign macro level and also at the micro level. And we're looking very much at you. Hopefully we've inspired you. And really the ball now is in your court. The dialogue has been opened, and over to Iqbal to guide us to the next stage.
Thank you, Mohammed, and the panel for that interesting discussion. As we say, we have opened this can of worms, I would say, and then let's see what comes out of it. But Mohammed, please don't coin another acronym. Recently, we have been examining doctoral theses, and acronyms run into 5 pages. So really, throughout the thesis, you got to go back and see what does this mean and what does this mean and so on. So please, let's keep as few of them as possible online. Okay, that brings us to the end of the Takaful Summit. But after lunch, we start the Responsible Finance Summit. You have a program on your desks. Those of you who can, please stay over and join us this afternoon and tomorrow. And there will be new people joining us from this afternoon as well. So all of you are also welcome. Please to join and participate in that debate, which actually neatly leads on from here into discussing what actually can be done, not specifically takaful-wise, but generally as well, because I think this is a much more bigger problem than takaful. It is human behavior, human conception, and it's a question of vision. Because without vision, we will not be able to get there. As Mohammed said yesterday, we now need vision. Retired people like Mohammed and me are happy to talk about vision, but for younger people to implement. Thank you very much and enjoy your lunch.